A mere 6 months after Sweetener, Ariana Grande is back with another album. Leading up to Thank You Next, she's put out some of her biggest songs to date, and when Sweetener came out, she had some of her biggest songs to date there as well. So it's crazy how she keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more successful. The song Thank You Next was #1 for a good amount of weeks, and then the single after that, Seven Rings, has been #1 for a while as well. It's crazy to see how successful she's gotten over the past few years, and I do like her. I do like Ariana. For pop artists this decade, she's got to be top 5. Like, she's got to be top 5. I mean, not in terms of albums, because typically I find her albums to be pretty average to decent at best most of the time, but singles wise, she is definitely one of the best pop artists of the decade. When she puts out a great hits album in like 10 years time, I'll be the first to buy that shit, man. Fucking great singles that she's put out, like Into You, Love Me Harder, No Tears Left to Cry, Breathing. They're just so good pop songs. Like they're like top quality pop songs that most artists in the mainstream don't even get near to making. Some people may be like, well, nah, Taylor Swift definitely is more consistent than Ariana, but I disagree. It's Ariana, man. Now, for as much as I do praise a lot of her singles, I'm quite critical of a lot of her music as well, because leading up to this album, I do think these singles that she put out were pretty weak, and it was looking pretty gloomy going into this album, I must say, because I'll get talking about them in a second, but I don't think these #1 singles are any close to her best songs yet. They're probably some of her worst, actually. But going into the album, I was just like, you know what? Every album she puts at least 2 or 3 great songs that I take away and still play quite frequently, and if I can get at least a few, I'll be happy. And you know what? This album gave me a few songs that I think are great, so I'm kind of okay with that. I will say this album, though, is slightly worse than Sweetener. I didn't really like Sweetener that much. A lot of people praised it. It made so many year-end lists as well. It did baffle me quite a bit to see all the praise it got. Still to this day, I'm confused by that. But I could at least see that the high quality songs that made that album were so good. But this album, unfortunately, it just falls short and makes for a slightly less enjoyable experience than Sweetener was for me, to be honest. Most of these tracks just follow a very like slow, vibey kind of thing that works well for her R&B vocals. Like, she has really top-notch vocals that fit the R&B style quite often, but it doesn't make for very exciting songs. And I've got to say, lyrically, Ariana isn't really one of the best around, and it definitely shows on quite a good number of these songs too. NASA is a perfect example of this. I mean, it starts off quite nice. The sound of the song is decent, but like the friggin' I'ma need space, and then she spells out NASA. That is the most surface level lyricism you could possibly come out with. Jesus Christ, could you not think of anything better than I'm gonna need space? Oh, space, like space. Oh, it's so painfully basic, and I'm not trying to, knock her for writing these songs, because I imagine, like, for a teenage fan base this definitely will be appealing, or like a younger female audience. I could see that, but man, this is like primary school level of metaphor. Like, it's so poor. On the first track, I don't particularly mind. It's probably one of the better R&B cuts. Imagine, I mean. But yeah, again, just lyrically, it's very much like, ooh, I'm not going to wear makeup and we're going to get in the bath together and have a good time. Imagine what that would be like. Ooh. I just feel like I'm just not the audience for this. Like, maybe if you're a young girl, again, fantasizing about relationships or whatever, then this might be something that you'd really relate to or really enjoy. But if they were just written better, I think these tracks would be so much more enjoyable for just a general audience. Like, I don't want to compare every pop artist to a Carly Rae Jepsen, but Carly Rae Jepsen writes very basic lyrics too, but they at least have a bit of substance to them that I think can actually generalize just to more than like a young teenage fan base. But I feel like these lyrics here don't ever really get past that. And while we're on the topic of metaphors, I guess we should probably talk about the "Break Up With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored" song, which definitely caused up some controversy. I'll admit I definitely did take it very surface level at first, But I think it's totally fair to do that when you read into the lyrics and the verses. They're pretty poorly written. Like the entire metaphor of it being about, you know, break up with me, I'm the girlfriend, I'm bored, I want to be alone, single with myself. It kind of works, but just not in this song. Like the lyrics in the verses where she's talking about like kissing someone, like if that's about herself, how does that even fit? It doesn't really work, does it? And it's kind of funny as well to see how people jump straight into the defense of Ariana about this song, and it's like, oh, you're misinterpreting this, it's a metaphor, it's obviously a metaphor. People wouldn't misinterpret it if it was a clear metaphor, though, would they? Like if it was betterly written, people would understand it and they wouldn't be misinterpreting the way they did. And also, it did take a music video for people to work out what this song means. The song should be able to speak for itself. You shouldn't need a video to tell you what the song means. It's very clear that this entire thing was built to cause up a stir. And a mainstream artist doing that to cause buzz, to cause hype around a song makes sense to me. It's all been pretty marketed quite well, I've got to say. As well as this, I do want to point out how easily led people are. Like, people are straight away, you know, labeling this as like empowering, a female empowerment song. Is it? If so, why? Why is it? Why? What makes this empowering? I don't get it. It's just a song about someone deciding that they'd rather be single right now as opposed to jumping into a relationship with someone and being bored or doing it for the sake of it. That's just ordinary human behavior. This is not empowering to women in any way. I think the bar has been set so low to this point that people just label these things with these kind of words without really knowing the meaning, to be honest. The thing is though, I do want to say that this song does sound good. Like, it's produced by Max Martin, it does sound good. I think the lyrics should have been better, but it does sound quite good, I can't deny that. And Max Martin is on plenty of other songs on this album and has worked with Ariana in the past too, and produced some of her best songs in my opinion to date, and on this album the ones that he's a part of are the best songs here as well. My issue with Sweetener though was that Ariana had too many songs produced by Pharrell Williams. Like, all the songs he produced on that album I thought were really weak, dragged the album down quite a bit, but on this album the best highlights are Max Martin's songs by far. We've got Bloodline and Bad Idea. These songs are so well made. Bloodline is essentially the record label saying, hey look, we need another side to side, but this time make it good and without Nicki Minaj saying dick bicycle. And then they came through with Bloodline and it's a great song. I do love the production on this. I think it's really fun and summery. Ariana's vocals across this as well work really, really well with the track. And I like Bad Idea because it's just so catchy. Like, the entire track is just built around this really good beat. Ariana, again, when she's on top of form, she's just able to make such a great pop song, and this is just an example of that. It's a real shame that they don't come very often on the album though. As I've said, the singles leading up to this I wasn't really a fan of. Seven Rings I think is really poor. Amazed at how popular this has gotten, to be honest. I think it's one of her worst songs yet. The interpolation of Favorite Things is really, really weak in my opinion. And the fucking G thanks on the chorus is one of the corniest things I've heard in music in so long. And I think Thank You Next has a really nice sentiment to it. I think the verses, initially I didn't misinterpret the song, I must admit, but I think the verses are really sweet. I do think the chorus takes away from it though. Like, I think the whole Thank You Next is a bit of a weird way to send out your message. Like, I get it, you know, she wants to move on, thank you next, but it's kind of just like, oh yeah, you guys did what you did, but now I'm moving on from that straight away, and it kind of negates the meaning for me a little bit. Not completely, but I just think she should have said something else other than thank you next. Like, thank you next, you say that to a fucking customer, like a cashier says that to a fucking customer at a shop. Like, you don't really say that to people that have impacted your life in a great way. I just found that really odd, to be honest. I think Makeup has some trashy lyrics as well. This isn't a single leading up to the album, but I'm just talking about the deeper cut here, about how, like, you know, she's basically saying how she just argues with a guy on purpose just so they can make up and stuff like that. It's just toxic, to be honest. I don't really like this attitude. She does make some metaphors to like actual makeup in the song as well, but the pretty much message of the song is about makeup sex and how she likes to stir up an argument and then, you know, have sex after that and that kind of thing. A lot of people do think this way actually, and I can see why you would relate to this song, but it just kind of comes off a bit trashy to me. I'm not really a fan of it. I do like the lyrics to Fake Smile though. I think Fake Smile is actually quite a clever song about how, like, you know, you have to put up a front to just hide those feelings. There was a song like that on the last Paramore album, wasn't there? That was a well-made song too. It reminds me a little bit of that, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I like this kind of lyricism, and she does it pretty well here too. And the song Ghostin, I quite like that. It's a nice little ballad type track. Talking about Mac Miller and her relationship with Pete Davidson, and how I think the death of Mac Miller really took a toll on that relationship, which I think it would. I think naturally it would. I don't think you should really shame either of them for that. Like, you know, people might be like, oh, Pete Davidson should have been more understanding. He might have been. We don't know that, but it definitely does impact a relationship massively, like that kind of thing. I don't know from experience, but you can't deny that it would. So yeah, overall, just like a spotty album, like some great moments just mixed in with some really weak moments that I just expected better, really. Production is hit or miss. Lyrically is even more hit and miss than the production. I don't know, it's just a mixed bag. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Sweetener, but I think this is slightly worse than that because there are just less great moments on this album, to be honest. I don't really remember having many issues with Ariana lyrically in the past. Like, I've never really thought, oh, she's wrote a bad song here. They're usually just either so-so or decent at best, but here there are just genuinely bad lyrical songs, which I'm a bit disappointed in. But yeah, I think a 5 out of 10 is fair. Like, this is just average. I guess for a pop album, I can see why people would gravitate towards it. There are definitely some highlights here, but it certainly isn't an album that I think needs to be raved about. It's nothing all that special overall. Some of the best songs are really, really good, and then songs just kind of dip in quality. It's a shame, but I do still like Ariana. I think she is one of the better pop singers around right now in the mainstream. Just album-wise, she's still not there. I think she's got a bit of a long way to go. Mature with her lyrics more, to be honest. Less songs about makeup sex and fucking NASA. But whatever, this probably is gonna appeal to more people than it does to me, but that's just my opinion anyway. Let me know your thoughts on this if you've listened to it. Thank you for watching my review. Comment, subscribe, like. Have a good day. Goodbye.